As Americans prepare for the potential appearance of the Omicron variant in the U.S., members of Congress are pushing to find the origins of COVID-19 and want to make sure the country is ready for the next pandemic. A bipartisan group of senators is calling for the addition of a 9/11-style commission on the coronavirus pandemic to the National Defense Bill. And joining us now, the lawmakers leading the charge. Democratic Senator Gillibrand of New York and Republican Senator Roger Marshall of Kansas. Thank you both for coming together on this issue. And Roger, I'll start with the Republican. I appreciate your being here and want to ask what you both hope to accomplish with this. It seems to me that in this investigation, we'll be finding a lot of ways in which perhaps we fell short in responding to the pandemic when you look at the U.S. government response to COVID-19 and the effectiveness of COVID-19 messaging. But is it addressing issues so that we can reattain our leadership on the world stage when it comes to response?
You know, it's all the above, Mika. So let's start with the origins of COVID. I do think it's important. Did this come from nature or did it come from a laboratory? Did it leak from a laboratory? There's a lot to be learned. If a plane crashes, we go to all lengths to find out why it crashed. As a physician, if a patient dies, we want to do an autopsy or offer that to the family. So we have 700,000 reasons why we need to explore this. And more than just the origins, but let's look at our response. We made some mistakes. Let's look at those mistakes and learn from them and help future generations. You know, the Omicron virus variant is just another reason that we need to understand the origins of this virus.
And as we were talking in the break, Senator Gillibrand, there's still so much we don't know moving forward. And so this investigation is looking back, but also looking at what's in front of us.
And looking at fundamental things like how do we use the Defense Production Act better? How come we don't have U.S.-based manufacturing on the ready? So the next time we have a pandemic, make sure that we can produce the personal protective equipment here in America. Make sure we can produce ventilators here in America. Our manufacturing base, our Made in America base has to be strong for any type of pandemic in the future. And we need to have the stockpiles ready. We need to have the nurses and the doctors and the hospital systems ready. A lot of that we've really not been investing in with a wide eye and a view towards how do we keep our national security strong. So Roger and I joined together to look at this holistically in the same way we looked at the 9/11 attacks holistically. We had a state-of-the-art joint commission, something that wasn't political, that was absolutely nonpartisan, that looked at the 9/11 terrorist attack from start to finish, what we could have done better to prevent it, what we could have done to make sure another attack like that happens. And those recommendations have been keeping us safe ever since. We've had dozens of terror attempts in New York City, but because one of the recommendations was a joint approach towards security with CIA and FBI and NYPD all co-locating and sharing intelligence and keeping New York City safe from terrorist attempts, it works. So we need the same thing. We need the CDC and the CIA and DOD and HHS and the best minds working to make sure another worldwide pandemic doesn't hit and see us unprepared.
As leaders. Joe, jump in.
Yeah, Senator Marshall, I wanted you all to come on because of the origins question, which we have no idea yet, and we obviously need China to participate. But just hearing Kirsten talk about this, it really, I just say, it really excites me that you all are looking at this holistically, because I will admit it. As a former Republican, as a conservative, as a free marketer, my idea was, okay, yeah, let this go there. Let's be as efficient as we can be. Let's save money in production, and then we can get it back here. And then we see in the middle of the pandemic, wait a second, we're not making enough ventilators in the United States of America. Hold on, we have to depend on China to send us masks. Wait, you're telling me like 90% of the medication, the pills that are made in China? It's kind of like, our chips in Taiwan. We have outsourced just basic things that we need, not only for our national security, but for our health. So can you talk to what Senator Gillibrand was saying about how we bring some of those abilities back to our country domestically so we're never in that position again?
Yeah, Joe, you make a great point. In March of 2020, I was sitting in Southwest Kansas volunteering in an ICU and ER. We had 8 ICU beds, but 11 patients. We had 9 ventilators. And I had to call the White House myself and say, please send us more ventilators. So, yeah, we've become very much over-dependent on supply chains across the seas. I think that there are ways that we can incentivize and bring those supply chains back to America. I'm not sure that we're ever going to be making exam gloves and gowns here in America again, but I think we can bring them back to Central America, to South America, to Mexico. And then we can bring, and we already are. In Wichita, Kansas, the aerospace industry stopped making airplanes and started making ventilators. So there's lots of things we can do to bring those supply chains back to America.
Senator Gillibrand, you talked about the need to look at the origins of this. Obviously, that's going to involve sensitive conversations with the Chinese. Are you convinced that the Chinese will give you honest answers to what information they had in December, January of 2019, 2020 about where this came from?
They may or they may not, but when we were investigating the 9/11 terrorist attack, we had to get sensitive information from Saudi Arabia, from the Saudi government. A lot of that information stayed classified for a very long time. The families in New York were entitled to that information. President Biden just declassified that information. That took a long time. We don't want to have that same mistake. So we need to do the investigative work. When the most recent report was published, our intelligence services determined that it was ambiguous. They could not reach a conclusion on the origins. They did not have access to enough information. But there's a lot of scientific data. And Senator Marshall and I had a hearing which we had the participation of Senator Burr and Senator Blumenthal and a lot of experts. And on scientific data alone, there's a great deal of publicly available information that needs to be absolutely studied, delved into by experts that give us a lot of information about where this virus started, how it started, and whether it was from nature or from a lab. We also are learning a great deal based on these variants and how quickly variants are being created about origin. And so we need a scientific look at these issues that is very deep and very resourced. We also need to work with allies and work with adversaries such as China to work from a scientific perspective. But again, this effort is not about finger pointing and it's not about blaming. It's literally about getting to the bottom line. And I think you can do that perhaps more collaboratively long term if you're looking at it from a scientific lens. And I would not say that it cannot be done because I believe it can be done.
Another one from Joe. Joe?
Yeah, Senator Marshall, I was just going to ask you, what do we do about China? What do we do about, again, getting long-term cooperation from China, which is going to be so necessary? We saw China from the very beginning. I know Matt Pottinger, a real hero, in December of what, 2019, and they were trying to get help. Government officials trying to get the Chinese to cooperate, and they wouldn't send us samples. They stonewalled us. Then we saw the WHO basically carrying China's water. They wouldn't help us out. So I guess long term, as Senator Gillibrand said, we've got to figure out a way to work together to make sure this doesn't happen again. Any strategies in that realm to build some sort of medical partnership with China?
You know, absolutely. So China's a bully. My dad taught me back in grade school, you have to stand up to China, right? Or to a bully, right? But we need an all-world approach as well. We've also called on the World Health Organization to go back and investigate this, and they're starting that process. But I would just reference the DNA lab bank. So Dr. Xi shut down a DNA lab bank in September 2019. The EcoHealth should have some lab data as well. The NIH had lab data that they've shut down as well. So if we have experts in there, we may be able to find the grandfather or the cousin of COVID-19. I don't know that. But there's economic pressures, it's sanctions. It's no different than human rights issues with China, right? We can't look at this in a silo. It's all one big problem, one challenge with China going forward. There's not one solution. We have to figure out how to put pressure on where the key points are. Like we are holding up some nominees right now from the White House that had relationships with China that we think were hiding some of this information as well. And yes, Matt Pottinger did a great job and is a hero.
Senators Kirsten Gillibrand and Roger Marshall, thank you both for coming together to work on this, and thanks for coming here this morning.
Thank you, Mika.
We appreciate it. And